Hello, it's me, Taylor Hunter, and before I begin, I do have one question for you. Are you currently experiencing any wrist pain or have you in the recent past? And if not, it's still important that you listen to what I have to say so that way you know how to prevent it from happening to you. And if you are unfortunately one of those that is experiencing wrist pain, I'm going to share some generic stretches as well as some lifestyle tips that could help you to alleviate your pain. Now, some of you may be thinking, so what if my wrist hurts occasionally? It's not that big of a deal. Well, I'm here to explain why it is a big deal. So, by ignoring the initial signs of wrist pain, you run the risk of your symptoms becoming chronic and affecting your quality of life. Especially now when everything is online and requires you to be typing on a computer, if you don't do anything to alleviate your wrist pain, that not only do you run the risk of affecting your quality of life, you also risk damaging your school or work life. So before we jump into how to alleviate wrist pain, we first need to understand the anatomical structure of the wrist itself. So here's my wrist. You can see that it's the region that connects my forearm to my hand, and it's very mobile. So it's going to be very susceptible to injury. And in the forearm, there are two bones, the radius and the ulna. And these two bones come together and articulate with the carpal bones of the wrist. And along with these bones, there are 9 tendons originating from the flexor forearm muscles and the extensor forearm muscles. So when I flex my wrist down like this, my flexor muscles are activated. And when I extend my wrist like this, it is activating my extensor forearm muscles. And so the 9 tendons of these forearm muscles come together and form a tunnel, and which we refer to as the carpal tunnel. And it's most commonly known for its syndrome, carpal tunnel syndrome. In brief, carpal tunnel syndrome is caused when the median nerve that runs through the tunnel is compressed, causing numbness and pain in the wrist and hand. But for the sake of the 7 minutes that I have, I'm not going to go into detail about any specific condition that causes wrist pain, such as carpal tunnel or any form of arthritis, gout, or sprains and fractures. If at the end of this video you believe your symptoms to be more chronic than generic wrist pain, then I recommend seeing a licensed physician who will be able to give you a more accurate diagnosis and treatment. So, we know that there are 8 carpal bones, 9 tendons from the forearm muscles, and 2 forearm bones that come together to produce your wrist joint. And these structures thus allow your wrist to be incredibly mobile, allowing you to move it almost any which way. And as consequence, any repetitive motion of the wrist increases your probability of developing acute wrist pain. Now, you may be inclined to ignore these initial symptoms and sensations, but as I stated earlier, you run the risk of your pain worsening over time. So to combat this, doing simple stretches of the wrist can help you to ease your pain and halt your condition from worsening. And according to the Journal of Orthopedic and Sports Medicine, in their article titled Carpal Tunnel Syndrome Treating Hand Pain and Numbness, they say if you have mild to moderate carpal tunnel syndrome, stretching exercises can help. Now, while this article does focus on a more specified wrist condition, one of the main causes for carpal tunnel is overuse and repetitive motion of the wrist. Therefore, doing stretches to alleviate generic wrist pain brought on by these repetitive motions will have the same effectiveness. So finally, I'm going to show you some four easy stretches that will help you to alleviate any acute wrist pain you may be experiencing from overuse and repetitive motion. So first, start with your arm flexed and relaxed. You're then going to take your pointer finger and align it with your knuckles. And you're going to wrap your thumb around it like this, and you're going to hold it down like this. And then you're going to slowly but gradually flex the hand down, and as you do that, make sure to put extra pressure on this first knuckle here as you push, and you're going to flex it down. And once you have your wrist in a good stretch, slowly extend your arm out, and you're going to feel a good pull in the top of your wrist and in your forearm up here near your elbow. This is where your pronator teres muscle is, which is the muscle that allows you to turn your hand over. So as you're pulling down on this wrist right here, extending your arm out, you're getting a good stretch in your flexor muscles. You're getting a good stretch in there. And then what you're going to do is you're going to release that, flip your hand over, and do basically the same thing. You're going to take your pointer finger, align it with your knuckles right here on your palm side, wrap your thumb around here. This time you're going to bend your wrist back like this, still putting that extra pressure on this first joint right here. So you're going to push it down to a comfortable pull and stretch, still in that flex position, and then you're going to extend your arm out, and by doing that, you're getting that good stretch in your wrist and also getting that good stretch in those flexor muscles right here. So you're stretching not only the wrist, but you're also stretching your forearm right there. And yeah, so you're just going to stretch like that. So these are 4 easy stretches that you can do if you're experiencing any wrist pain brought on by any repetitive motion, such as typing on a keyboard. But along with these stretches, I'm also going to give you some lifestyle tips that you can use to either prevent wrist pain from happening to you or to help you in your recovery process. So based on recommendations from the Cleveland Clinic in their article titled Wrist Pain Causes, Treatment, and When to Call the Doctor, they recommend 3 things. Lower your keyboard so that your wrists don't bend upwards when you type. Take periodic breaks from typing and rest your hands, and use a rest with your keyboards, like that when there's little like long bump look at things. So your hands are kind of like in this position right here, the neutral position. So these 3 tips are focused on improving the angle of your wrist when you're typing, which lessens the structures within it from rubbing together and causing that irritation and inflammation. And also taking breaks from those repetitive motions such as typing will reduce the interval amount of time spent producing those motions. So if you take breaks, you reduce the time spent doing all that motion and stuff. So you're just, reducing it. So to wrap it all up, if you are currently experiencing generic acute wrist pain, there are 4 stretches that you can do, as well as 3 lifestyle tips you can use to further alleviate your pain or to prevent wrist pain from happening to you. Additionally, if you don't have any discomfort in your wrist, you can still do the stretches that I showed earlier as another preventative strategy. So in all, with modern day society moving towards a more virtual domain, it is imperative that we support the health and mobility of our upper extremities, because without our arms and our hands and everything in between, we risk losing our connection with the online world. So take in these stretches and tips into consideration, and hopefully they can be helpful to you. Thank you.